So, hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's always a pleasure to welcome you here. Can you hear me well? Because I hear a bit of echo. Yeah, okay? All good, good. Well, thank you. I think we are slowly mastering the access process, so we're becoming faster, and we are almost, Elena, I think we are almost on time, just a couple of minutes late. Yeah, almost to the hour. No, thank you very much, and thank you for your patience, for all of you who made the queue to sign. Sorry if a couple of you could not find your name. We had a little bit of a problem with one of the lists, but I think everybody has a place now, and this is important. So thank you very much for joining us. Tonight, the topic is Picasso. So let me just ask you super quickly, who is here for the first time? Okay, so many new faces. Well, welcome. As you probably know, my name is Serrano, and I do this because I love art, I love philosophy, and I like to transmit this to you. So hopefully that will be the essence of the night. Let me just make a super quick announcement, just not an advertisement, but an announcement, because I think it's worthwhile that you know. This coming Sunday, there's a very nice concert it's called Le Grand Tango, taking place at the Valentini Foundation in Remerschen. They ask, I have nothing to do with that, but they ask a cooperation of 35 euros. If you book through me, or if you simply mention my name, you get a symbolic discount of 5 euros. But apart from that, I think the concert is worthwhile. And if you don't know, the Valentini Foundation in Remerschen is a beautiful place that you can visit. So just a small ad. So you were making photographs? I'm going to send this tomorrow to everybody, so no worries for that. I'm going to send this tomorrow. Anyway, well, we are, let me now pass. So we are now almost at the end of our second year of conferences here at the Banque de Luxembourg. And we have had an intensive program over the last 2 years. And let me just, I was just waiting for her to arrive. But we have a VIP tonight, and we're very honored to have the Ambassador of Spain, Maria Nieves. Thank you for being here with us tonight. It is, of course, for me, a big honor to have the Ambassador of Spain visiting us tonight, but of course it adds to the pressure, right? Because the topic is Picasso, of course, and then having her here is not only an honor, but also a bit of a pressure, so I hope this is up to standards. Now, let me tell you, so I was telling you, we are at almost at the end of our second year in this beautiful place, the Banque de Luxembourg. Last year, we had all these conferences. We had 7 conferences last year, and this year we will have 8 when we finish. So we only have left Pablo Picasso tonight, and we're going to close the year with Don Quixote. That is on the 4th of December. The Don Quixote talk is already sold out, but we have a waiting list, and as always, as you know, there are people who cancel last minute, so hopefully you can make it for that one. So let me also tell you, so this is the next one. Her name is Dulcinea. Don Quixote on the 4th of December. Now, let me tell, as always, I need to make a big thank to the bank, especially to these people who are behind this huge sponsorship that we have had for these 2 years. As you know, we are looking for a new house, so any suggestion is very welcome. A special big thanks goes to Hisham Tuami back there in the operations cabin. He makes everything possible. Please, let me give him a big round of applause. Because I'll tell you something, from everything that I will miss from this beautiful place, the one thing that I will miss the most is definitely Hisham. He's a magician, he's a wizard. You just arrive and everything works, everything is perfect, everything is taken care of. So I'm really gonna miss you, Hisham. Thank you very much. So let me just, for the people who have not been with us before, let me tell you that my talks are a two-way conversation. So it's not only me boring you. I'm going to be throwing you some questions through the presentation. So please try to answer. And if you guess we have prizes. Tonight, a bit more special prizes than normally, so hopefully you can win one of those prizes. By the way, I will start with some questions, but the first 2 questions are only warm-up questions, just to get us ready. And the last thing is always very important to clarify that this is not an academic presentation, so it does not have the academic rigor of a formal university kind of lecture. This is just to try and transmit to you my passion for the topic. That's the only point. And last but not least, we're looking for a new house, as I said, so if you have any ideas, please drop us out your comments. Every idea could be useful, every contact could be useful. So with that, let's get started tonight with Picasso, the master of Cubism, discovering Pablo Picasso. Let me start by telling you that go back one. I have a lot of material because to talk about Picasso, I could talk like for a day. So I try to synthesize it to not make it also not too heavy. So I will go quickly, but of course, feel free to stop me if you have comments or questions at any point. So let me tell you that my fascination for Picasso's work is a very long story. I have been really interested in him for a bit more than 40 years, to be concrete. Everything started for me back in 1982, when in Mexico we had a big exhibition of Picasso called Los Picassos de Picasso en Mexico. That was in the year 1982, and I was 13 years old, and I was brought there by one of my aunts, my aunt Isabel, who is herself a painter. She brought me there, and I discovered Picasso. And ever since, they brought dozens of Picassos to Mexico City. Dozens of his paintings were exhibited. I was very impressed by the colors, by the forms, by the unconventional painting. I was particularly attracted by this sculpture, the Harlequin, and I was very fascinated by how he was using the technique to revolutionize aesthetics. And then, since then, I am in love with Dora Maar, the painting, not the woman, the painting. I need to clarify. But since I was a little kid, I was really fascinated with her. I'll tell you at the end why. But of course, the color, the explosion of colors is one of the reasons. And of course, the forms typical of Cubism are the reasons for that. And ever since Dora Maar, or the painting of Dora Maar, was for me the vehicle to know or to get to know Picasso more in detail, it has become sort of like an obsession. So every time that we have moved city, basically, I have a reproduction of Dora Maar that I painted many years ago. And every time that we pick a new house, my wife could tell you, we select the house because there should be a wall where she is positioned in a strategic place. So she occupies a very central place. Anyway, through Dora Maar, I became aware of Picasso. As I said, not the woman, but the painting and all its mystery. And since then, I have discovered Picasso. So tonight, I'm going to try to drive you very quickly about it. Now, who is Picasso? Who is this guy called Picasso? Well, let me tell you right on. He's arguably the most important painter, the most important artist probably of the 20th century. And you can get into arguments about this. But he's definitely one of the most important ones. And as you can see, his creativity has simply no limits. So, we could argue what place. I was checking the different lists. Who is the most important painter of all times, not only of the 20th century? Lists tend to agree that Leonardo or Michelangelo are one or two. Some lists position Leonardo first, some others position Michelangelo first. But in any case, Picasso is definitely top 5 in all the lists, and in most of the lists, top 3, with Van Gogh and Caravaggio following normally. So we could argue, but definitely he is in the top 5. But there is one thing that we have no doubt about it, and that is the leadership that he has in terms of production. He is, by and large, the most prolific artist, the most prolific painter ever existed, in every movement, in every culture, in every country. He left us more than 50,000 artworks. So it is really very impressive. Approximately 14,000 paintings and drawings, 100,000 prints and engravings, 34,000 book illustrations, plus ceramics, plus theater scenography, plus. So without doubt, he is the most prolific of all painters ever existing. Now, some people tell me, yeah, Picasso is just stupid colors and stupid forms and all that. I say, no, if you think that, you are completely mistaken. Picasso had two attributes that you should recognize. First of all, he worked like hell. He worked a lot. To produce that number of works of art, you need to produce a lot. You need to work a lot. But not only, he also studied art a lot, very, very seriously. Don't think, whenever you see a Picasso, don't think that it is just what you're seeing. Behind every Picasso, there's a whole story. There's a whole comparison with another painting. There's geometry. There is many, many things that he applied from his studies. Most of them self-studies. So these two characteristics are going to be always present in the work of Picasso. Now, let me tell you, he's not only the #1 prolific in number of production, but he is #1 in something else. What else? Warm-up question. He's #1 in what? Sorry? No? Prices, exactly. He is the #1 absolute in total worth of the art. Let me show you these figures. Some of Picasso's paintings, many of Picasso's paintings sell for more than $100 million. Many of them sell in the range of 1 million to 10 million. And smaller works, and there are many of those, range from 10,000 all the way to 500,000. If you multiply this times all of the work, it's a huge amount of money. Let me show you. I did the math. I was doing some maths in the end. No, in the end, I'm an MBA, and I like numbers, so I said, let's crunch some numbers. If you were to calculate the value of all the paintings, you get close to $9.5 billion US dollars. The sculptures, $2.5 billion US dollars. All in all, you get to closer to 16 billion worth of creation. No other painter, no other artist comes closer. Let me show you who do you think is next? Van Gogh? No, Leonardo is not that commercial. No, I mean, it's fantastic, but it's not that commercial. Simply, it's not that traded. So so Picasso is more than double Van Gogh. Van Gogh would be 6.5 billion. Andy Warhol is #3 with 4.1 billion. But look at the space, look at the difference between Van Gogh and Picasso, right? Isn't it impressive? Well, let me also tell you something. His art is praised and hated everywhere. Where is Marco? Where are you? Marco Ruiz? There you are. Some people really hate Picasso. For different reasons. Some people hate Picasso for aesthetics reasons. Some people hate him for political reasons. Some people hate it for all his stories about women and so those topics. But what we cannot deny is that he is super famous. How many museums do you think that are dedicated to Picasso worldwide? Fully dedicated to Picasso? 4. Well, no, not that many. We have 9 museums on Earth, 9 museums. No other painter has this, no other artist of any sort has 9 museums dedicated solely to him. We have 4 in Spain, 3 in France, 1 in Germany, 1 in Switzerland, and you could even consider another one in the US, but I didn't add because they also have a little bit of other painters, not fully dedicated, but these 9 are fully dedicated to Picasso. So this is how famous the guy is. This is the Picasso Museum in Paris that you probably know, Picasso Museum in Barcelona that you probably know, Picasso Museum in Antibes, a beautiful one that I invite you to discover also because Picasso said to see the Picassos from Antibes, you must go to Antibes. They don't travel. It's a very interesting place. Anyway, he is certainly also, apart from the value created, apart from how prolific, the most exhibited, the most copied, the most stolen, and the most faked painter of all times. So much so that recent news from last night, my friend Max Lacruz, who are you, Max? My friend Max Lacruz made me aware. Last night they stole, or apparently it's still missing, this painting from Picasso called Still Life with Guitar, was traveling from Madrid to Granada, and it disappeared in the middle of the night. This is just last night. This is just last night. So, this is how much people value Picasso, right? Anyway, so how did all this start? How did all this start? This started with Picasso. Well, let me give you, as I always need to give you, just some bits of bio information. So he was born in Malaga in October 25th, 1881. This is the house of his birthplace. Today is one of the museums dedicated to him. That's in Malaga. His parents are Jose Ruiz Blasco and Maria Picasso Lopez. And the mother, by the way, the mother was instrumental in building in him his self-esteem. The only thing bigger than the wealth that he has created, and the only thing bigger than the number of workouts that he created, is his ego and his self-esteem, in case you didn't know. The mother used to say, Picasso, if you were a soldier, you would be a general. If you were a monk, you would be the Pope. And Picasso completed the sentence, yes, Mom, but I decided to be a painter, so I became Picasso. So no lack of self-esteem. So for those of you who have kids and you still think that self-esteem is an important ingredient, well, apparently, at least in terms of production of art, it is definitely a key ingredient. Anyway, his first name is Pablo Diego José Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno María de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santísima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso. That's a full name. That's a full name. Right. I guess it was a wise choice to just pick Picasso, right, to call him. Anyway, here is he with his sister Lola in 1889. The sister unfortunately died at some point. And this is the father, Jose Ruiz. He was a painter himself and an art teacher. And he used to paint mainly birds and especially doves. And he very early recognized the talent of his son. And he, of course, was like his first teacher. And at some point, he detected that Picasso had surpassed him by and large. So he said, okay, I'm not going to paint anymore. But a couple of years later, he was back painting. But, this happened. This is not my exception. My son, who is somewhere here, by far surpasses my capacity to paint. And so that is normal, and it's always, I guess, a satisfaction. In any case, the family moved. Well, the family, he was born in Malaga, then they moved to Galicia. But then in 1895, they moved to Barcelona because the father got a job over there. So they moved to Barcelona, and there he was, at the age of 13, extraordinarily admitted to the Barcelona Academy of Art. The application process was a very complex one. They gave you like a lot of things to paint and to draw in order to be considered for admission. And normally that process would take you like a couple of months. He completed that in a couple of weeks, and he got accepted immediately. So he spent some years over there in this school of art, La Lonja de Barcelona. Over there, he met a couple of friends, Ángel Fernández de Soto, but more importantly, Carles Casagemas. This is Casagemas, who is going to be very important for his career, as we will see in a moment. But that friendship was very, very strong and very significant. With the two of them, he spent a lot of time at this cafe in Barcelona, Els Quatre Gats is called. He even designed, painted the menu for the cafe. And they spent a lot of time at that place debating, talking about art, the bohemian life of the active Barcelona of those years. He moved to Barcelona, by the way, when he turned 19 years old. So, he was very, very active. Then at some point, he leaves Barcelona for Madrid. And he goes to Madrid, and he first studies at the Academy of San Fernando in Madrid. But then later, he drops out. He says, the classes are sort of boring. I'm not going any longer to the classes. But he does go a lot to El Prado. In El Prado, he's going to learn directly from the masters. And this is where the serious study that he conducts serious studies of the big painters. So, of course, Velázquez, of course, Goya, but very, very importantly, El Greco, and many others, of course, Caravaggio, Rubens, and the others. Now, in 1900, he moves to Paris, and he moves also with, so the friend Casagemas goes also with him. They establish themselves in Montmartre, and they start painting there. Of course, he has a lot of illusions, a lot of ambitions, a lot of dreams, and he's going to start in Paris to the career that eventually is going to be what we know of Picasso. Over there, together with Casagema, they were inseparable friends. They were going to all the places together. But one night, one specific night, Picasso goes to Barcelona, and during that night, something terrible happens. His friend, Casagemas, who was in love with a girl called Germaine, proposes to her unexpectedly. She refuses him, and then he takes out a gun and tries to kill her. He doesn't kill her, but then he kills himself. And this caused a tremendous impact in Picasso, as we will see in a moment. This marks actually the start of what we call the periods. So when we study Picasso, we divide his production in different periods, and the suicide of Casagema is going to mark the start of those periods, as we will see in a moment. But before that, let me just say a couple of words of his very early works. His very, very first painting was this called El Picador, painted at age 8. You might say, yeah, but Rick, this is maybe too simple. This might be too basic. Well, it looks basic, yes, but if you consider it more carefully, you will see that the use of the tones is already very revealing. That yellow contrasting a lot with the horse, and also the faces of the two people behind. Those are signs of somebody who is going to dominate painting. But let me jump up a couple of years. We go to age 15. At age 15, he paints this work called The First Communion. It was actually the first communion of his sister, Lola, and the father. And if you take a closer look, you see the quality of the painting. You see already how he dominates really the brushes, the strokes, the colors, the textures of the clothes very, very significantly. Also, like in this other painting of called My Mother, at age 15, look at the dress, look at the hair, look at the skin, the color of the colors of the skin, the shiny parts of the face, like the nose, like the front, like the ears. This is coming from basically a boy, 15 years old. Take a look at this self-portrait. Only, this, let me give you a closer look. You can see not only how he masters the colors, but also bear in mind that it's difficult to make portraits, but it's even more difficult to make self-portraits, because you need to have a very honest appreciation of yourself, and you need to be able to reproduce that. That's definitely not easy. And at age 16, this is impressive. Take a look at this one. It's called Science and Charity from 1897, painted at age 16. This is also very impressive, not only for the quality of the painting, but also for the topic. Notice what he's talking about. So he's showing us the big dilemma of somebody facing death, and somebody facing death accompanied by religion on one side and medicine on the other side. So faith and science. So also the subject tells you about a master already in formation. As I said before, he was very inspired by the masters of El Prado, but specifically by El Greco. Let me show you this one. This is a very famous painting of El Greco, and let me give you a closer look at this one. Is El Entierro del Conde de Orgaz, which is a very popular painting by El Greco. And he's going to be inspired in this painting. He's going to create this painting, which is Casagema's Death. Let me show you once again here and here. And this is going to happen over and over in his work. He's going to take inspiration from the great masters, and he's going to reinterpret that in his own style, in his own form. Anyway, as I said, the death of Casagema is going to mark the start of the period, Now we can start with the period. So first period, most of you probably know, the blue period happening between 1901, 1904. Of course, why the blue? Exactly, melancholy. He's sad. The best friend has killed himself. And by the way, he took care of the girlfriend. Picasso. But anyway, just, right, somebody needed to take care of her. In any case, he started painting in the blue period in these years. You can see the forms already. Very important, when you look at a Picasso, I always invite you to what I call follow the lines, because he's the master of the brush strokes, how he's somebody, and I think that has to do definitely with his self-esteem. He grabs the brush and with total self-esteem goes and makes the lines. And the lines go, and they don't necessarily end, but they change forms. I'll show you in a moment. Anyway, the palette in these years is blue, blue-greens, indigo, cold atmosphere, like in this one as well, sad topics, long faces. Take a look at, for example, at this one, the old guitarist from 1903. Sadness, poverty, but in these years, of course, Picasso is not yet famous, so he's struggling, he doesn't have money, he lives in a very cold apartment in Montmartre, he has nothing to eat, he doesn't manage to sell his painting yet, so sometimes he burns the canvases, supposedly to keep warm, so it's not easy, not an easy period. But still, you can already appreciate the amazing composition that he does, with geometry playing a fundamental role in his paintings all the time, as you can see in these two convergent triangles here. Themes of sadness and isolation, like in this very famous painting called La Vie. I will come back to that one. Or in this one, the Blue Room. As you can see, it sort of reminds us a little bit of Matisse. It sort of reminds us a little bit of other painters. But you can tell that there is sadness in the atmosphere. You can tell that there is poverty. There is great colors outside the window. There is sadness. There is melancholy like that. Look at this one, Harlequin and his companion. And here I'm going to take a closer look. Follow the lines once again. Follow the lines. See? You see, the lines go really, they are fluid, like a liquid. Or take a look at this one. So he starts painting, and what is the nose, then becomes the front, then becomes the hair, then falls by the hand, then the forearm, the elbow, and the other forearm, the fingers, and back to the mouth. You need to, it's like a travel. You need to travel the lines to understand Picasso. So these are marginalized groups. He paints poor people, marginalized group. And this one, which is called La Celestina, it was in reality the owner of a brothel in Paris. So, places that he frequented often. All the time painting elongated faces, emaciated figures, inspiration from El Greco directly. The Bach, for example, from 1901, 1902. Once again, you can see the lines, how they flow in the blue period very clearly. Also here in Seated Woman. Or topics that have to do with poverty, like this one, symbolic and poetic mood, The Soup from 1902, 1903. Or this one, the Desamparats, 1903. But let me stop and analyze, because we can go very quickly, but it's important that you realize how deep he goes into the topics. Let me pick one example, which is probably the best one from the blue period. This is about this painting called La Vie in 1903. Take a close look at this painting, and you should be able to tell me if you really make an effort. And we have a very nice prize for this if you guess. There's a very nice prize for this one. So this painting is making reference to another painting. And actually, if you want, to a concept. Anybody who would like to take a guess? What is this reminding you of? Let me give you some context so that you can probably guess. So the guy standing there with the woman is Casagemas. So Casagemas had killed himself 2 years before, and Picasso has been very sad all these 2 years. So having said that, any guesses? Yes? Sorry? Adam and Eve. No, that's a natural thought, but no, it's not Adam and Eve. Sorry? La Pietà. No, it's not La Pietà. Nadine? Michelangelo, no, also not Michelangelo. This is a difficult one, I know.
It's like in general Jesus and about the death, that we are mortal and that we need to keep going till the end arrives.
What do you think? Can we give that for good? I think we can give that for good. Let me show you. Yeah, so you get a prize. So big round of applause. So normally for the prizes we give books, but this time it's Picasso, so it's a bit more special. So you get a reproduction. Can you pass this to me? So I told you the prize was nice. I hope you like it. So, yeah, I'm going to show the answer. So this is making reference to death and deaf people who are closer to us. But let me give you what the exact answer is. You need to take a very closer look, and you need to focus here. This is telling you the clue. This is telling you the clue. The hand like that. The hand like that in Christianity, in Christian art, is very, very important. Do you know why? There's no more prize, but do you know why? No, not the Pantocrator. The Pantocrator will be like this. This is a little bit more like this, and distancing yourself a bit. Let me show you. This is coming from Noli Me Tangere. Noli Me Tangere means do not touch me. So this is a painting from Tiziano, 1514, where the story is that after Jesus' resurrection, Maria Magdalena goes to the tomb, and she's very sad because she thinks the body has been stolen. And then all of a sudden, Jesus Christ appears next to her, and she wants to touch him. And he says, no, noli me tangere, do not touch me. This is Tiziano, but even more eloquent is this other one from Correggio, from 1525. You can see the hand is exactly the one used by Picasso. So this is how deep Picasso studies the subjects. The hand is like that. Do not touch me. Let me go, because I need to go to heaven with my Father. In the same way, the allegory that Picasso is building is Casagemas is telling Picasso, you should let me go. I know you're very sad. I was your best friend. I committed suicide. I know you've been sad for 2 years. You should let me go. That's the analogy. I think it's fascinating, so I wanted to share it with you. You can see here the hand once again. Anyway, let's continue. So, as I said, Picasso studied his subjects very well, but that's enough for the blue period. So what's the next period? The pink period, the rose period, yeah. The rose period, 1904, 1906. What motivates the change to the rose period? Of course, a woman, right? That's going to bring light into his life, so he's going to change. And we immediately change palette. So we're going to go with a warmer palette, pinks, oranges, beige, ochre, those tones. We're going to change topics. We're going to have circus, bohemian life, an acrobat, and a younger harlequin. From this time, he starts getting fancy about painting harlequins. Girl on a ball. Still, if you see carefully, still a bit of a sadness in the faces, but the color palette is warmer. But still topics that, yeah, maybe love, humanity, a little bit of sadness still, but definitely more light. But you see the boy still with a sort of a sad face. Also here, you know, a little bit maybe they are not so, no, they don't have a lot of money. They are probably preparing for their next presentation. But still that bit of nostalgia and sadness. But in any case, the style gets even more refined and the colors bring more light. At this point, he gets to know Gertrude Stein. She's an American that has a lot of money, and she's going to start buying some of his work, and then things start to change from an economic point of view in this moment. It's also a moment of personal transformation. He's becoming more self-secure. He's starting to sell. He starts to become more outgoing. The death of Casagema is in the past, and he starts developing painting. Let me show you another bit of analysis here. For example, this painting, which is from a circus image, you can tell very quickly, that is inspired by Raffaello's Sacred Family. You can see the same proportions, same figures. Notice how the characters in the painting are seeing each other, but they are not seeing the observer, so they are not seeing you, because you should probably not be staring at them. That's the message. And he follows the triangles of the great masters when painting the Sacred Family. He lived here in Le Bateau Lavoir in Montmartre, and these are the years of the Rose period, all these colors, topics of circus, topics of harlequins, and these kind of subjects. Well, enough for the Rose period. We move to the next one, is the African period. So why the African period? Why the African period? Basically, there was an exhibition. So before these years, African art was not popular in Europe yet, but due to the colonies and so, they organized an exhibition in Paris, specifically in the area of the Trocadero, where he discovered basically African masks, African art, and specifically the masks. And he got fascinated by this because he thought, that is completely a different subject, that is completely a different style. And then he said, I'm going to break with everything that I've been doing. I'm going to break with the classicism. I'm going to break with naturalism. And I'm going to start like slowly but surely decomposing the figures. I'm going to start to break them down, like in this called the Dryad from 1908. I'm going to start cutting them in pieces and making something that does not need to replicate reality. I can allow myself to paint things that, yes, make some reference to reality, but that do not necessarily follow it. So he started exploring with what is called primitivism. So figures that look like very basic, like too basic, too organic, and he's going to play with that, or like in this one, paysage or deux figures. You can tell me, where are the deux figures? I don't see them. Well, you need to look carefully. They are there. But you see how he mixes the figures with the branches of the tree, with the roots of the tree. It's like disguising them in the scene, right? This one, of course, as well. He starts, if you see, it's like a soft but logical movement from the Rose period into the African, and is the introduction of what will become the Cubism. Now here the nudity starts to appear, so the first nude drawings and drawings start to appear. And building on this idea of the African fang masks, he starts creating especially feminine figures with these heads, these sort of African heads. And this is, of course, what gives birth to the Les Damoiselles d'Avignon, which is, of course, the first official painting that will close the African period and get us started in Cubism. So this is a transition to the Cubism. But now, Les Damoiselles d'Avignon was very, very controversial in those years. Of course, today we all appreciate it, today we all respect it. We might like it or not, but we recognize the tremendous artistic value that it has. But in those years, it was very, very criticized when it came out. So much so that at some point Picasso even hid it for a while and kept it without showing it, because even people like Matisse were criticizing it very strongly. And anyway, today we appreciate the beauty, but if you take a closer look, this is going to Cubism, but we're not there yet, because, for example, let me show you why we're not there yet. Although the forms are decomposed, although perspective is gone, although the forms start to be a little bit wild and crazy, we, for example, still have the eyes in the same horizon. So you have them in the first scene, or in an angle, but not yet totally distorted. So it is the beginning, but we're not there yet. Now we're going to jump from the African period to Cubism. Now the Cubist period goes from 1909 to 1919, but it's divided in two parts, and it's important that you distinguish them because they are very different two parts. So the first part, before I tell you that Cubism was not a pure invention of Picasso's. He developed that together with Braque, so it was actually a co-creation. But anyway, I just want to clarify that. So anyway, analytical Cubism is from 1909 to 1912. That is characterized by objects that are sliced and diced into little pieces and decomposed. So everybody's talking about decomposition these days, and he goes and starts decomposing the figures. As you can see, the palette is relatively similar, so very uniform. But take a look at this fabulous girl with mandolin, how the face is decomposed, and now we change planes. So now we don't have everything on one plane. We start twisting the figures. We start twisting the elements. We start, for example, decomposing the shoulder. Take a look at the shoulder. It has like 5 or 6 different cuts, and it's like twisted all over the place. Musical instruments, bottles, or newspapers appear. but the palette of colors is very limited, so very around the grays, the dark sepias, the dark browns, probably dark greens, orange and greens. And it has a lot of structure, and it does have already different viewpoints. So you can interpret the painting from different standpoints. That's another characteristic of this, which is the analytical cubism. Now, the first part is the analytical cubism, but the next part is the synthetic cubism. Now, do you want me to jump to the synthetic cubism? I guess you won't. But before we do that, let me make a pause here. Allow me a parenthesis, because there's something that you probably know, or you probably don't know, but I think it's important. So the year is 1911. The city is Paris. What happened? Revolution? No, not revolution. Water level? No. What happened? What are we talking about tonight? Art. So what happened in the world of art in 1911? In Paris? No. A very, very popular thing happened. I mean, a very... No, let me give you a hint. So, let me tell you. Picasso was arrested and interrogated. Why? The Mona Lisa was stolen, exactly. So you get a prize. Let me give you the prize. Bravo. Applause, please. Yes, exactly. The Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre, and Picasso was a suspect. And he got arrested. I think I should make a conference only on the Mona Lisa to tell all the story, because it's a long story. But to make the long story short, it happened that Picasso had actually, he had bought a couple of Iberian statues stolen from the Louvre at some point. And somebody denounced that, and they arrested it, and he was questioned. But eventually he was let go because he was not the guilty person. So the guilty guy was an Italian called Vincenzo Perugia. Vincenzo Perugia, who was a carpenter and who worked at the Louvre, he was making the frames for the paintings. He stole the Mona Lisa in an attempt to return it to Italy, because he considered that for patriotism, the painting should reside in Italy and not in France. And he stole it from the Louvre. You should think that in those years, the Mona Lisa was not as famous as it is today, that it has a dedicated room, and you go there and you squeeze through all the multitude of people to snap a poor selfie, and then you need to leave, totally suffocating. No. In those years, Mona Lisa was not that famous. She was just hanging there in the Louvre, yes, but occupying a secondary place. And Vincenzo Perugia decided to take it away. He knew the logistics of the place very well because he worked there. So he waited for a Saturday evening. He locked himself into a closet, and then when the museum was closed, he came out, took the painting, and waited until Monday. On Monday, he wanted to go out just like anybody else. He goes to a door that he had planned to escape through that door, and it turned out to be locked. So he's standing there with the Mona Lisa under his arm, and he's like, but he doesn't get nervous, and then all of a sudden, a plumber appears, and the plumber recognizes him. Oh, Vincenzo, what are you doing here? I need to bring some material out to the other building, but it's locked. Oh, don't worry, I open you. And the plumber opened the door. He left, and he took it to his apartment, also in Montmartre, where he hid the painting for 2 years. During those 2 years, many things happened. Among other things, the government offered a reward of 250,000, I think, dollars, the equivalent of dollars at that time, for any information. Nobody found it anywhere until the moment Vincenzo Perugia tried to bring back the painting to Italy. He brought it back to Italy. He contacted the owner of a gallery, and he said, I have the real Mona Lisa. The guy came, checked it, and he said, yeah, this is the real one. Let me go get my partner. He went away, and they came back with the police. Yeah. But in any case, as you can imagine, that made that the painting became one of the factors why it became so famous. Anyway, just a short story, then we can continue to synthetic cubism. So synthetic cubism, 1912, 1919. What is going to happen here? So in the analytic, we have divided things. Here in the synthetic, we're bringing things together. So at this point, Picasso invents collage, and he is recognized for inventing collage, that is clear. For example, in this painting, he is called Still Life with Chair. It includes a piece of a chair. For the first time, it goes and develops collage. So this is guitar, for example, collage, pasted elements, pieces of newspaper, and very importantly in Cubism, no perspective. So all the effort that we had done through the centuries, all the effort of the Renaissance, all that we spent talking about Piero della Francesca and the great masters, Raphael and company, all goes to the trash, and now we celebrate no perspective. Well, okay, but it's a different kind of beauty, because part of this you should think, why does this happen? Partially due to photography. Remember, photography has been relatively recently invented, so the role of painting is not anymore to replicate reality. It's not anymore important to replicate reality. What we want is to decompose reality. What we want is to find new ways to see reality, new ways to interpret reality. Harlequin, total decomposition. Let me compare this with the Rose period. Let me compare this. You see, a big change, no? But still communicating the essence of it. Anyway, so what happens after Cubism? Well, after Cubism, basically, an unexpected change happens, and we have a return to previous form. We go to something that is known as the neoclassical period, 1917 to 1925, and then he starts painting classical forms, you know, women that are strong and heavy. By coincidence, he becomes a father. So, of course, this is one of the motives why he goes into this trend of painting these kind of figures, Greek-Roman art inspiration, massive figures of massive women with almost perfect but very, very heavy bodies, family images because he has just become a father, Mediterranean life scenes, and those are the characteristics of the neoclassical period. From there, we move to the next period, which is Surrealism. He is also not the inventor of Surrealism, of course, but he is a very big contributor. For example, with this painting, The Kiss of 1925, or Woman in the Garden, 1930. As you can see, this is like Cubism, what we saw before in the analytical and in the synthetic Cubism, but with the color. So a big bath of color everywhere, and this is probably what we know most of Picasso, like this kind of paintings. No? So complete the composition, but with more fantasy, with more colors, with more illumination, of course, and with more creativity. Again, follow the lines, and you can see how he starts somewhere, but he continues. You can never tell where exactly he started or where exactly he finished. Anyway, 1935 marked approximately the end of the so-called period's time, and then the experts do not agree how to call the next moments or the next period, but the next phase is definitely charged by political and emotional expression. So the years specifically 1937 to 1945, so the years of the wars, both the Civil War in Spain and World War II, of course. And here is where we must talk, of course, about the Guernica. Guernica is the painting that he created in 1937, but let me give you a bit of a background, because of course you all know Guernica, but let me give you a bit of a background. So it is January 1937, and the exhibition, the World Exhibition of Paris 1937 is coming in the summer, and the Spanish Republican Commission asks Picasso to create a big painting for the exhibition. But in the beginning, Picasso is not very inspired. He says, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. And he has no inspiration, so he procrastinates the work until April the 26th, 1937. In April 26, 1937, what happens? The city of Guernica in the north of Spain is destroyed. Basically, this is where Guernica is, north of Spain. Basically, the dictator Franco had asked from the Nazis to send the Luftwaffe to destroy the city, to send a clear signal that they should obey the orders of Franco. And it was a Monday, and Monday was market day in the town of Guernica. So it was a little town, but they had a lot of visitors. And the Luftwaffe went to bombard the city with the intention of destroying what was supposedly to be an arsenal of weapons outside the town. But the day was very cloudy, and the Luftwaffe, instead of destroying the target, basically destroyed the city. The city was, we don't know the number of casualties because there were people from the town, but there were also people from other towns. It is estimated to a possible total of 1,500 casualties, but we do know that 3/4 of the city were completely destroyed. And this shocked Picasso. This shocked Picasso very much, and then he started sketching, and then he said, I need to say something. I need to condemn war. I need to condemn the atrocities of war. And he sketched it, and he sketched it, and he sketched it. And although he normally worked very, very fast, he dedicated 36 days of work to this painting, unheard of for Picasso. And of course, the painting is of huge dimension. It's 8 meters by 3 meters. And it is loaded with elements, loaded with a lot of symbols. For example, this one, the bull or the minotaur is an element that Picasso uses all the time, sometimes to depict himself, in this case to depict the dictator, Franco, to show the imposition of the force by the dictator. You see here, for example, the image of this soldier dead with a knife in his hand, but a flower growing in his hand, so a bit of hope in the horrors of war. Or you can see, for example, here, the mother crying desperately here. What's the analogy here, Jean-Jacques? Here, now you go, exactly. Exactly, now here, the Pietà. So I think we can give Jean-Jacques the next prize, if you give me a big round of applause. You were right, but you were just in anticipation, so you get a reproduction for you. Thank you. There you go. So other symbols, of course, the light bulb at the top. The light bulb in Spanish is called bombilla, which is also a diminutive for bomb, so showing the bombs that were falling into the city. But at the same time, the light, possible light of possible peace that should come at some point. Desperation shown from people. Also, I mean, I don't have more prices, but from here you can tell. Desperation happening here. This is coming from another very famous painting by Goya, which is called The 3rd of May. Also very famous. You can see that at the Prado Museum in Madrid. So you see, always Picasso is not only inventing, he is inventing, but he's also getting information from the big masters all the time. At some point it became very famous. There's an anecdote, a very famous anecdote, that at some point the Nazis go to his studio in Paris, and he had a photograph of the Guernica behind him. And one of the soldiers asked him, did you do that? And he answered, when he was asked, did you do that? He answered, no, you did. Very famous quote by Picasso. Anyway, the Guernica was, after the exhibition in Paris, he was sent to the States to be protected. Picasso was afraid that it could fall in the hands of Franco, so he sent it to the States, and it was kept at the Met for many, many years. And in 1981, after when, of course, Franco was already dead, it went back to Spain, first to the Prado, but eventually to the Reina Sofia. You can see it in the Reina Sofia in Madrid. And it was so important that they even created a replica. An artist called Jacqueline de la Bombe created a replica of the Guernica, a tapestry. And the tapestry hangs in the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York City. But it is so polemic, and it is so political, and it's so loaded with a message of condemnation of war, that in the year 2003, when the United States wanted to justify that they were going to attack Iraq, they did not want to have the Guernica behind them. So they ordered to put a curtain, and the tapestry was covered during Colin Powell's announcement. Anyway, after the war, what happens after the war? We have the so-called post-war experimentation period, 1945-1953. And then we have works like this one, for example, La Joie de Vivre. You can see it's like the culmination of everything. We have passed through all stages of art, the blue period, the rose period, the African period, Cubism, synthetic, analytic, surrealism, and then we come to this place. And then he sort of relaxes. He starts painting what he wants. He starts doing doves, talking about peace, talking about resurgence and new things. And of course, the late style and erotism goes on till the moment of his death. He keeps on painting a lot and always going with subjects like this, which are inspired in other big painters. For example, this Les Femmes d'Alger is inspired in this other work by Delacroix. This is actually the painting that has been sold for the highest value ever of Picasso, something like 179 million, if I'm not mistaken. So very, very expensive. And other subjects, you know, but you can tell that the painter is fully satisfied. He has tried all the movements. He has tried all the styles, and now he only paints whatever he likes. But he comes up with paintings as beautiful as this one, or things like this, the Chicago Picasso, so sculpture, many, many creations. Well, I think that's enough for periods and styles. I think we can close it here at this time. But of course, there's a topic, especially because Marco asked me, there's a topic that we cannot avoid mentioning, and that is, of course, that one, right? So women. So Picasso and women is a huge chapter that you could dedicate a conference to that topic. But anyway, one thing I have to say, I don't know how he did it, but he managed to have women. It's paradoxical because all of his women, he had many, many women, all of his women were not only beautiful, but they were very intelligent, and most of them were economically independent. So I don't know how he managed, but he really got them very in love with him, very addicted to him. It was like, I guess it was the charge of passion. I guess it was all this self-esteem or something that created that. Make them, you can see here, of course, with Brigitte Bardot, but many, many beautiful women. And actually, I did not have time, but I wanted to create a table showing the number of women versus the age difference that they had, because the age gap got just bigger and bigger as he got older and older. And also the women got more beautiful and more beautiful, so it's amazing. In any case, as a gigolo, chapeau, I have to say. But anyway, it has, of course, its dark side. It has, of course, its very dark side, because two of the women ended up in very bad mental conditions, and other two of them committed suicide. So you can tell the negative impact was very substantial. Let me just walk you super quickly through them. So probably the first one, or the first official one, Fernando Olivier, French. They spent together 7 years. But of course, they spent together 7 years, but in parallel, the new thing was started. Eva Guel, 4 years, French, also national. As you can see from the note, they met in 1911 while he was still with Fernand. So there's like this parallelism going on. You know, for me, it's like he probably considered women probably like brushes with which you paint. You can use one brush, but then leave it there and then use another one, and doesn't need that you need to throw away the old one, right? I guess it should have been something like that. Anyway, then comes Gaby Lespinasse, also French, met in 1915. And then comes Irene Lagude, and then comes the first, let's say, from the most important ones, Olga Koklova. Olga Koklova was a Russian ballet dancer. They met in 1917 during a performance. And they're going to get married in 1918. And they're going to separate in 1935, but they're going to remain legally married until 1955 when she dies. Because, of course, there was, at that time, a lot of money involved, so neither wanted to go for the divorce, although, of course, many other women were coming to his life. At that point, with Olga, he has Paulo, and you can tell Picasso gets fascinated by the arrival of little Paulo, and he's going to paint him and the mother in many paintings. And then Paulo, when he grows up, he's going to have Pablito, the grandson. Pablito, the grandson, by the way, is going to be one of the casualties of these things, because Pablito is going to die at age 24 in 1973, because when Picasso dies, the wife at that moment, we will get to that, the wife at that moment forbids that the old family goes and visit Picasso and sees the dead body of Picasso. So Pablito, who was very close to Picasso, get like an emotional shock, and he drinks a bottle of bleach. And after 3 months of agony, he dies. Yeah, very catastrophic. Anyway, as I said, he had Paulo with Olga, and that is when he was in the middle of the neoclassical period. He paints a lot of paintings of Olga and Paulo with this sort of Greek, Roman aesthetics. Also, one more important thing to say about the women is that he would paint many paintings. He would make many paintings of his women, but you can tell how the woman decays in his, as his favorite by changing. You can see this is Olga in the beginning, and this is Olga in the end. So a clear decline. A clear decline. Maybe not artistically, but for the woman, definitely yes. Anyway, the next one important is Marie-Thérèse Walter. She's Spanish, much younger than him. They're going to spend together 9 years, and you can tell immediately that now, the painting tells a different story about. So while he was closing with Olga like this, he was starting with Maria Therese like this. So you can see sensuality, ease, peace, comfort, love, right? These kind of images. And then with her, with Marie-Thérèse, they're going to have a daughter. So this is a photograph of the old daughter, but Maya Wiedemeyer Picasso. So that's the daughter he had with Walter. Then, of course, comes Dora Maar. And this is even more paradoxical, because he was extraordinarily intelligent. He was born and raised in Buenos Aires, so she spoke perfect Spanish, if you can call Argentinian perfect Spanish. But he communicated with Picasso in Spanish, so in his mother tongue. And you should bear in mind that it's more difficult to cheat someone if you speak that same language, according to some research, serious research. So it's even more surprising, because they were speaking in Spanish with each other, and yet she, of course, he cheated on her very badly in the end. Anyway, they spent together 8 years, and she said this at some point: "You have never loved anyone in your life. You don't know how to love." So this is very strong to tell to a painter, to an artist in general, I think, but especially to a painter, right? Anyway, here you can also see the decay, right? You can see Dora decaying, and you can even tell it's the same bed, right? The same bed, same bedroom. So it's Dora Maar falling apart and Françoise Guillot coming into the scene. You can tell by the paintings who is going away, who is coming now. So the next one, Françoise Guillot, French as well, and they spent 10 years together. This is she. And she became very famous. Well, with her, she became very famous because she wrote this book, Life with Picasso. I have not read it, but it's very popular, and actually that raised her a lot of money to Françoise. And Picasso was so upset that she wrote the book that he would never talk to her again after the publication of the book. They had two kids, so Claude and Paloma. And Paloma, of course, later became a bit famous with her brand. Francois said this: Pablo was the greatest love of my life, but you had to take steps to protect yourself. I did. I left before I was destroyed. She's the only one who had the courage to leave him. All the others were basically thrown away. She was the only one who left him. Next one, Jacqueline Roch, and maybe the last formal one. So they spent basically the last 20 years of Picasso's life together. They eventually got married in 1961, and then she became one of the main, of course, she inherited most of the wealth, but she was very tough, and as I said before, she did not allow that the family came to the, when Picasso died, to the funeral, and that was very controversial, of course. She is, by the way, the woman who Picasso painted the most, something like 400 pieces of art between paintings and drawings, 400 of Jacqueline Roch. You can see how he depicts Jacqueline, like the head like a periscope, like checking what is happening. She's taking care, right, like a periscope. Who gets closer to Picasso? I need to control who gets closer to Picasso. Of course, the lovers are flowing. So he is with Jacqueline, but the lovers keep flowing all the time. That does not stop. More paintings of Jacqueline all over the place. Picasso dies at age 91 on the 8th of April, 1973 in France. And before that, let me just close very quickly telling you why I like the Dora Maar, this version of the Dora Maar so much. First of all, because you should think that this painting is painted in 1937, so it is just the war is, the civil war in Spain is coming, the world war is also coming, so people are closed at home, people are nervous. The walls, you can tell the walls are like closing the space, there is limited space. One can have difficulty even to breathe in this pressure, and yet Dora is there, standing there, full, complete, in control. Take a look at the elbow. The elbow is very, very eloquent, I think. How the elbow is well planted on the arm of the chair because she's secure, she's self-secure, sitting there in the chair. Look at the hands. Look at the fingers, how elongated they are, how stylish they are. Look at the other hand also falling. It's like I think like bananas, right? Because Picasso had fun with this, as you saw the picture that I showed before, where he puts the baguettes as his hands, right? He likes playing with this. So look at the eyes. It's like chiles, like pepperoncini, right? So that is why I like it so much. Look at the hair. It's totally improbable. Blacks, blues, reds in the hair. And look at the neck. Totally distinguished despite what is going on, despite the war. She's totally distinguished, always present, always there. And sitting, you know, very well seated in that room. And she's sitting in the chair, but if you see, she's sitting like just maybe just leaning, because in times of war, you probably need to escape. So you need to be able to escape quickly if needed. Anyway, that's my coup de coeur. And with that, I close you. I thank you very much, and I will see you upstairs at the cocktail. Thank you very much.